A girl named Lucinda moves to a school for troubled teens, where she finds herself in the middle of a war between heaven and hell. Welcome back to Recap Spot. Today we'll be covering the 2016 romantic drama, Fallen. The film begins with a voiceover explaining that Lucifer revolted against God and caused a war where every angel was forced to choose between heaven or chaos. One of the angels refused to pick a side, saying that the only force worth fighting over is love. This angel was cast out of heaven, alongside all the other angels who didn't pick a side, and was now known as Fallen. The film then cuts to Lucinda Price, as she drives with her parents to Sword and Cross Academy, a school for troubled teenagers.
Is that it?
While Principal Randy is welcoming her in, Lucinda spots a boy named Cam Brielle, as he's escorted in by police into the principal's office. Cam and Lucinda make intense eye contact as Cam is escorted, instantly making a connection. Principal Randy takes away all of Lucinda's technology, as well as a gift her mother gave her for her birthday.
What's this?
Lucinda is then introduced to Aryan Alter and is given a tour of the dorms. Aryan notices Lucinda looking at Cam and warns her to stay away from him because he's nothing but trouble. She tells Aryan that there are a lot of people sent here from psych wards, and that seriously mentally ill people are put up to the 3rd floor. She then asks Lucinda where her room is, and it turns out Lucinda is on the 3rd floor.
You messing with me, right?
Lucinda gets settled into her dorm, and that night we see her waking up and noticing a moth stuck in a light bulb. She then starts seeing disturbing hallucinations about fire and darkness, before the moth eventually dies, and Lucinda goes back to sleep. We then see Lucinda in a session with Dr. Watkins, her psychologist, and he asks her about her hallucinations, which she calls shadows. Lucinda has been seeing these hallucinations since she was a child, but is able to keep them at bay with medication. However, she doesn't like how the pills make her feel, so she refuses to take them, despite Dr. Watkins recommending it.
If you refuse, you need to be here.
Lucinda says that she would rather be locked up in a palace like Sword and Cross Academy than be forced to be something she's not, just to fit in. Lucinda heads to pick up her books, and we see Aryan, as well as her friends Roland and Gabby, taking bets that Lucinda will go down in flames, just like always, implying that they somehow already know her. Lucinda goes into the library for her books, and meets Mrs. Sophia, one of her teachers. Miss Sophia sends Lucinda into special collections to grab one of her books, and she finds a boy named Daniel Grigory asleep in a chair. When Daniel sees Lucinda, he rushes out of the room, leaving behind one of his pencils in his hurry to get away from her.
He dropped this.
Later, Lucinda is walking down the hallway when a mean girl named Molly picks a fight with her and calls her a murderous psycho. The two start to get into it, but Principal Randy shows up and stops the fight before it can escalate. Lucinda heads to the bathroom where she meets Penn, a strange but sweet girl. Penn knows a lot about Lucinda, which weirds her out at first, but she quickly grows fond of Penn and asks her to show her to the dorms.
Sure.
The next day, we see Lucinda in class, and she notices that Daniel is there too. She stares at him and is fixated by his drawing. Class starts, and we hear talking as Miss Sophia talks about the fallen, angels cast out of heaven and forced to live alongside mortals. She explains that there are good fallen who repented, the bad who like to cause mischief, and the rebel angel who won't pick a side because he wants to pursue human love.
What happened to the other angels?
Until the rebel angel chooses a side, the rest of the fallen are stuck on Earth. Miss Sophia asks Lucinda about her religious knowledge, and Lucinda says that she didn't grow up religious and isn't baptized, making Daniel look at her with concern. We later see Lucinda doing yard work as punishment for her fight with Molly. As some of her classmates are walking by, one of the statues on top of the school begins to fall towards Lucinda. However, Daniel manages to push her out of the way and save her from being crushed. While Daniel is grabbing her, Lucinda hallucinates and sees flashes of what seems to be a past life. After seeing that she's okay, Daniel immediately walks off without saying a word.
Are you okay?
Sometime later, Lucinda is on the phone with her mom and tells her that everything at the school is fine. Another person says that they need the phone, and Lucinda's call ends early when the line goes dead. Lucinda talks to Penn about it, and Penn says she can use her time because Penn has no one to call, since her parents don't want her. The next day, Cam watches Lucinda through a window, and Molly comes over to make fun of him for being in love. She tells him being in love could make things difficult, and warns him not to forget who he works for. Lucinda thanks Daniel for saving her life, and asks him if they've ever met before, because he seems really familiar.
Like I know you from somewhere.
Daniel seems uncomfortable, and says they've never met, before walking off. Lucinda runs into Cam, and he convinces her to skip class and eat breakfast with him. The two flirt while they eat, and Cam reveals that he stole the food from the faculty lounge. He tells Lucinda she seems like the kind of person to do what's right instead of doing what she's told, and the two flirt some more. The bell rings and Lucinda gets ready to leave. But before she does, Cam invites her to a party at the end of the week.
Aren't you in this class?
Lucinda then heads to fencing class, where she's put up against Molly and quickly loses. She swaps partners and ends up sparring with Daniel, which gives her flashbacks of another life. She suddenly begins fighting with expert skills. They continue to fight, and we see in the flashbacks that Lucinda and Daniel were fighting together when someone stabbed and killed Lucinda. In the locker room after class, Lucinda sees Daniel shirtless and is fixated on him, while Penn tells her that Daniel and his friends are considered outsiders. Penn has access to all of the students' files, and tells Lucinda that Cam, Molly, Daniel, Arian, Gabby, and Roland are all new and have totally blank files. She also mentions that Miss Sophia is a new teacher as well.
I have full access to everybody's academic record.
We then see Roland talking with Arian and saying that Lucinda is doomed to die and no one is going to be able to stop it. The film then cuts forward to Roland's party, and we see the kids drinking and having fun around a bonfire in the woods. Cam and Lucinda flirt at the party, which catches Daniel's attention and seems to irritate him, even though he's supposedly with Gabby. Molly shows up and tries to start another fight with Lucinda, but it's stopped by Arian and Cam. Arian walks away with Lucinda, and Cam threatens Molly, warning her to stay away from Lucinda.
Stay away from Luce.
He then goes to find Lucinda, but is stopped by Daniel. The two begin to fight over who will protect her, but Roland steps in and stops them. Lucinda goes to walk home alone and starts hallucinating, causing her to freak out and run. Lucinda begins having a flashback to a fire she started, which led to the death of a boy named Trevor, and which was ultimately the reason she was sent to Sword and Cross. We see Lucinda in another meeting with Dr. Watkins, and she lies to him, saying that school is great and she hasn't been having any hallucinations.
Good?
Lucinda goes swimming one day and runs into Daniel there. She notices a necklace he's wearing and begins to get more flashbacks of a past life. Lucinda says she feels a connection between them, and Daniel says that there's another girl who he loves that reminds him of her. In the hallway, Lucinda confronts Penn over how Molly knows things about her past, believing that Penn read her file and then spread the information around. Penn proves Lucinda's theory wrong, and the two girls make up. Lucinda then confides in Penn about her past. She tells her that Trevor had ignored her all year, but at a random party began flirting with her and asked her to go into a cabin with him. The two start to get intimate when Lucinda starts seeing her shadows and suddenly finds herself outside, while Trevor is stuck inside the cabin as it burns.
I'm so sorry.
Lucinda says she's dangerous and warns Penn to stay away, but Penn doesn't care. During another class with Miss Sophia, Lucinda is able to easily translate Latin, and Arian starts a fight with Miss Sophia over her interpretation of the Angel Wars. After class, Lucinda realizes she forgot something and heads back to the library, only to find Miss Sophia warning Daniel to watch Cam, because she doesn't believe the incident with the statue was an accident. Lucinda gets caught listening in on the conversation and grabs a drawing Daniel discarded before leaving. Lucinda heads to the school's garden, and Daniel meets her there. He tells her a story about two souls who are always in love and meet every 17 years. But the girl dies whenever they fall in love and kiss, and the boy is cursed to wait for another reincarnation of the girl, only for her to keep dying.
And she's gone.
Lucinda gets reminded of her past life with him, but Daniel lies and says that none of it's real. One night, Cam shows up outside Lucinda's dorm with a cupcake because it's her birthday. Cam invites Lucinda out, and she goes out to a concert with him where they make out before Cam is pulled off by Daniel. Daniel thinks Cam works for Lucinda, and Lucinda panics and runs home without either of the boys. Lucinda thinks she's the reincarnation of someone who was romantically involved with Daniel, and she confides in Penn.
Maybe I can help.
Penn gets a friend to help them dig into the kids who are all new to the academy, and they use facial recognition software to look into them as a hooded figure watches them. They find an old photo of Lucinda and Daniel, which confirms Lucinda's theory about being a reincarnation. Seeing this triggers flashbacks for Lucinda and causes the library to go up in flames. Daniel saves Lucinda from the flames, and she wakes up in the infirmary. Gabby and Ariane feel bad about letting her down, while her parents want to take her home, and the police want to question her.
I refuse to accept that.
Todd ends up dying in the fire and has a funeral, which Daniel and Cam fight after. When Lucinda finally wakes up after the fire, she cries with Penn over Todd's death, and Lucinda is convinced she's the one that killed Todd. Penn tells Lucinda that's not the case, and the two fall asleep together. Lucinda dreams about her romance with both Daniel and Cam. When Lucinda wakes up again, she fully knows that she's a reincarnation of Daniel's love, and that he's a fallen angel alongside the rest of his friends. She confronts Daniel about this,
I know what I know.
and ends up jumping off the building while knowing full well that Daniel will save her. He saves her and admits that he's her soulmate. Daniel then explains that the shadows Lucinda sees are actually just memories of their lives together. The two are about to kiss, when Cam stops them and helps explain that if Daniel and Lucinda kiss, then Lucinda will die. Daniel is convinced that he can beat the death curse this time around, and Lucinda kisses him. Lucinda doesn't die, and Daniel believes it's because she isn't baptized. Daniel and Cam end up fighting over who can protect her, and Daniel asks who's been trying to kill Lucinda if it supposedly isn't Cam. Meanwhile, Miss Sophia is escorting Lucinda when Penn stops them and reveals that Molly has been the one trying to kill Lucinda, and that she's who started the fires. In retaliation for this revelation, Miss Sophia slits Penn's throat. Miss Sophia then reveals that since she isn't baptized, Lucinda will permanently die, and after that, Miss Sophia hopes that Daniel will choose a side and help end the Angel War. Daniel swoops in and whisks Lucinda off to safety, while Gabby and Ariane promise to help Penn. It's obvious that the Angel War is coming to a close, and Lucinda is going to be right in the middle of it.
Click one of the videos on screen right now.